So good morning again. What I want to start with this morning is a section from a text that some of you might know about, some of you might not. It was written in Chinese originally. The title is, in Chinese, is Xin Xin Ming, which is translated different ways, but one of the ways that's translated is affirming faith in mind. Tradition says it was written by the third Chan patriarch, Jianji Senkan. The tradition is, wait a minute, where is he? I thought we had a Bodhidharma in here somewhere.
He's in the other room.
Oh, he's in the other room. Bodhidharma's out in the Sangong. So Bodhidharma was the person who tradition says brought this form of Buddhism from India to China, and he passed it on to Huike, and he passed it on to Senkan. So Senkan was the third Chinese patriarch. So around the year 600 or so, this text is, some people have referred to it as the first clear and comprehensive statement of Zen, or as a Zen primer, kind of a fundamental text. It's pretty long. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm only going to read about the first third of it. This particular translation is from Richard Clark. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. When the deep meaning of things is not understood, the mind's essential peace is disturbed to no avail. The way is perfect like vast space where nothing is lacking and nothing in excess. Indeed, it is due to our choosing to accept or reject that we do not see the true nature of things. Live neither in the entanglements of outer things nor in inner feelings of emptiness. Be serene in the oneness of things, and such erroneous views will disappear by themselves. When you try to stop activity by passivity, your very effort fills you with activity. As long as you remain in one extreme or the other, you will never know oneness. Those who do not live in the single way fail in both activity and passivity, assertion and denial. To deny the reality of things is to miss their reality. To assert the emptiness of things is to miss their reality. The more you talk and think about it, the further astray you wander from the truth. Stop talking and thinking, and there is nothing you will not be able to know. Now, when you first hear this, that might sound a little bleak, a little oppressive, maybe. Does that mean I'm not supposed to like some things more than other things? I can't prefer a Coke to a Pepsi, or love to hate, or freedom to oppression, or peace to war, or the absence of physical or emotional pain to the presence of physical or emotional pain? Assuming that the tradition's correct about who wrote this text, and scholars are a little iffy about that, whether what's come down to us that Senkan wrote this text is actually true or not. Assume that it is. Is that what he meant? Is this what Senkan meant? I doubt it. At least I hope not. I'm pretty sure Senkan still had foods that were favorites and foods that he loathed, and didn't like the persecution of Buddhism that was happening in China during his lifetime, and preferred to not have a toothache to having one. To me, the warning of the text is it's deeper. It's more subtle than that. So if we go back and look at a few lines from the text and kind of think about them at a deeper level, then maybe we can understand it a little bit more. So let me back up a minute. Indeed, it is due to our choosing to accept or reject that we do not see the true nature of things. Now, what that means to me, the way I take that, the way I understand that to mean, the reality of life is deeper than our superficial choices and our preferences. Those are kind of just of the moment, right? If we let our choices define our lives and ourselves, if we try to sort of construct our idea about who we are from our preferences, then we're really just kind of building an artifice from sand. There's nothing there that's going to hold up. It's easy, it's tempting to think of ourselves as the composite of our opinions and our preferences and our values, the things we're for, the things we're against. But that's just an illusion. That's what the Buddha called a tangle of views. Right? If you think about, we can kind of paraphrase, some of you this may not mean anything to, but we can kind of paraphrase a song that Mr. Rogers used to sing on PBS. You're not your views, they're just beside you. Our opinions and our preferences are part of who we think we are, and that might be a big part of how we're seen by others. Other people may associate us with what they think our stands are about things, the fact that we support certain ideas or oppose other ideas or whatever. But in a conventional sense, then, we may be seen that way, but in kind of the grand scheme of things, in a deeper sense, our views about things are just kind of trivial, right? They're fleeting. It's like, walking around outside on a windy, snowy winter day, and one of those little vortexes of snowflakes that happens once in a while, a little swirl of snow, and then it just kind of goes away by itself. Live neither in the entanglements of outer things nor in inner feelings of emptiness. Now, I don't know how you think about the part of the text that I read, but to me, I think really that pair of lines might be the most important part of the text in terms of sort of practical instruction. What can I kind of take from this to take into my life, to know how to live my life? To live in the entanglements of outer things would be to treat our momentary preferences as somehow profound, right? To treat impermanent things as if they were permanent. So let me give you a stupid, silly example of this. Imagine you prefer chocolate ice cream over vanilla ice cream, but the chocolate's all gone and all that's in the freezer is vanilla. So you're eating vanilla ice cream. But you're so dead set on your preference that the whole time you're eating the vanilla, you're seething about the fact that you don't have chocolate. You're wishing that you had chocolate. You're fantasizing about the next time you're going to have chocolate. And as a result of that, you can't enjoy the good thing you have because you're so overwhelmed for your desire for the better thing that you lack. Clearly, you're entangled in outer things. I want to compare this text and that part in particular to a more modern source. There's a podcast called Welcome to Night Vale. You've probably never heard of it. Even if you're a fan of podcasts, there's only about 3.7 billion podcasts in the world these days. So the chances that you've heard of this particular one are pretty slim, I realize. It's a really unusual podcast, though, because it's really kind of more like an old-fashioned radio play that's broadcast over the internet instead of over the airwaves. It's really a series of little stories about a fictional town somewhere in the desert Southwest where all manner of bizarre, spooky, alien, extraterrestrial kinds of things happen all the time. It's a little bit like if you imagine Garrison Keillor's Lake Wobegon from National Public Radio and Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone, and sort of the two of them get together and have a baby. That would be what Welcome to Night Vale is like. I want to read a quote here from one of the episodes of that series. The episode was entitled Radio Jupiter. It is so beautiful here on my perch, here in my place, in the cosmos and the universe about which I know nothing but feel everything. I don't know if everywhere is this beautiful, or even most places. Did I happen onto the one beautiful place in the all of it? Without perspective, there is only what is nearby. Without the burden of comparison, everything is beautiful. Now, to me, that last line of the quote concisely states what I find to be kind of the deeper subtext of Senkan's Xin Qi Ming. Without the burden of comparison, everything is beautiful. Pick anything, any object, any experience, any person. Look at that thing totally on its own. Don't put it down next to anything else. You'll see that that thing has positive attributes. That person, that object has beauty and function. That experience has some sort of benefit, some sort of lesson that you can learn from it. That person has skills and attractive qualities. Put that thing next to any other thing, and it will almost certainly suffer by comparison in some way. No matter how good something might be when it's viewed on its own, you can always find something else to contrast it with that will make it look bad, that will make it less desirable. That text from Night Vale also refers to the burden of comparison. The comparison is a burden. Part of what disturbs people in modern society is an overwhelming degree of choice. More than any other time in history, and especially here in America, we have so many options about almost everything, right? It's more than our little hunter-gatherer brains can handle. Deciding among all those options makes us anxious. How could I possibly choose? There are too many things to compare. There are too many ways to compare them. And our inclination is to want to try to make the perfect choice, right? To maximize the benefit that we're going to get from that choice. But as the saying goes, the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? And so we just make ourselves stressed out over every choice. We can't be satisfied with something being good enough. We've got to try to make it perfect. And in the process of doing that, in the comparisons that we're making, those comparisons become a burden and they make us miserable rather than making us content or satisfied. I've spent a lot of time with my daughter recently. I was regaling Hadosin with my stories last night. My daughter just recently moved from Boston to Chicago in the course of about 10 days. And so my wife and I were helping her. We spent a lot of time with her in Boston and out in Chicago and back and forth and around Christmas and all this sort of stuff. My daughter likes to give me a hard time about food. We were in Chicago, never really been there before. We went to a restaurant my wife and I had never been to before, but my daughter had visited when she went to interview for a job, and she'd been to in London and other places. And she asked me what I thought about the food, and I said it was fine. And she said to me, "Why do you always just say that food is fine? You never say that it's good." Well, what's wrong with fine? Isn't fine fine? I mean, fine is good enough. Why are we eating? If we eat to live and support our practice and not for a sensual experience, then why get excited over food that's good compared to what? Why get angry over food that seems inferior compared to what? Could we ever even think about good food and bad food without making a comparison, right? What's good unless you're thinking about something bad to compare the good to, or what's bad without thinking about something good to compare the good to? It's only in the course of context of making comparisons that works. And if that's the case for food, wouldn't the same be true for every experience that we have? For every person that we interact with. To close this morning, I want to give you another take on the text that we started with. There's some of you that might be familiar with a guy named Yongjin Unsan. He's a a Zen teacher. He's a white guy from Massachusetts, regardless of what his name sounds like. He's a white guy from Massachusetts. But he's a Zen teacher. He leads the One Mind Zen Collective, which is sort of based in Massachusetts, but seems to mostly be an online virtual thing. He's on social media all the time and very active in that sort of stuff. He's published a really interesting book that I got a few months ago on householder Zen in the 21st century, which is kind of an interesting, it's mostly a collection of talks. He's also written what's more of a paraphrase of the Xinqin Ming. So I actually want to end by reading you a section from his very colloquial, very sort of American colloquial version of that same beginning part that I read earlier, but his take on it. You may find this to be maybe a more approachable presentation of the text, a more maybe positive, life-affirming version of the text. To see that it's all good is easy if you don't care too much one way or the other. If you don't cling or reject or experience emotional extremes, none of it is hidden. It's all obvious. Stray from this the tiniest amount and you'll miss it by a mile. If you want to get to the truth, then don't think you know what's true and what's false. To decide that what you agree with is true and what you disagree with is false is just delusional thinking. When you decide you know what is true, you'll drive yourself crazy when confronted by false. When you see that it's all good as it is to see its reality. When we cling to our beliefs and think they are truth and reject others because they are false, we show our own ignorance. Don't mistake forms as permanent, and remember, impermanence doesn't mean nothing matters. Be at ease with how things go, and the dis-ease disappears by itself. Sungbo La Shipshio, may you I in all beings manifest enlightenment.